there we go. Welcome to the Offload. Donncha flying solo today. Tommy, like most of Ulster, it was a little bit windy outside, so he didn't fancy it. No, I'm being disrespectful for him. The fellow works his tail off, and we're glad to kind of give him a little suspiog before we head into the incredible season ahead. Interpros kicking off next weekend. Munster taking on Leinster in Croke Park, so we'll go into that in more depth with Tommy. But we did want to bring you up to speed with what's going on in rugby and just life in general, and drive on with the offload as we normally would do. There's only one place to start on the offload this weekend, and that was with the really sad news about our former teammate, colleague, friend, and beautiful person, Lewis Moody. Um, We'll chat more in time about Lewis when we've Tommy, but we just want to send our love and support to him and his incredible family. I suppose, personally, having seen what our teammate Paul Derbyshire went through with motor neuron disease, when you see the likes of Doddy Ware, when you look at the incredible people like Kevin Sinfield that have done so much for their beautiful friends like Rob Barrow, it is something that, one, we need to do a little bit more for the players that we can support, and also acknowledge the incredible work that's done by others in a selfless task. But the main thing is to show the love and support for an incredible person. I know we'll always chat about the rugby player, and Lewis, what a competitor, and what a guy to have in your team. I was lucky enough to tour with him in 2005. I'll never forget meeting him for the first time with Jordan Murphy, who they had a special relationship. They were more than teammates, they were brothers. They had a bond. And Jordan telling Lewis that Dunners' sound was straight away a seal of approval that I was all right. But my main takeaways meeting him was how sound he was. And I know that can be um, quite general thing to say, but when I played against him, man, every time he'd never take a step back. And we spoke in the dressing room last week about those foot soldiers. Well, he'd a foot and bow camp. He was a leader, obviously captained England, but also led with his actions. An incredible guy. And we just want everyone around him, and especially Lewis, to know that we're sending him all our love, all our support, and we'll always be there for him. What an incredible guy. Anything we can do to help out on the offload, we would be absolutely delighted to do it. But sad news, and it did rock us, especially when we heard it on the BBC the other day. So just sending love and support. A hard one to move away from, and to try to put into context the rationale of rugby after it, but it was a busy weekend. I'll be honest with you, this weekend coming, and even last weekend, everyone's kind of finding their feet. So don't get too bogged down with rugby at the moment. If you're missing little bits of it, it'll get there. You know what I mean? Don't get frustrated or annoyed. It's all building up towards the autumn internationals, and we will have you nicely set. There was an awful lot of good rugby, then there was cancelled rugby, and we'll go through that in a few minutes' time. But maybe now is a good point to just take a little break and play a few ads. Okay, there you go. Tommy, wouldn't you know it, huh? He doesn't miss the ads. Um, I like to do this with Tommy on a Friday, maybe just take through some unusual stories. Basically, we use our WhatsApp group on the offload for me to send him absolute nonsense. And I saw two stories that I sent him this week that I thought you might get a bit of a giggle out of. Again, totally non-rugby related. But in Mali, there was a world record set for nuntuplets. No, there's a word for you. Nuntuplet. Take that away and try to get it into a sentence today. That is 9 babies born at once. Their mother, Holome, she gave birth to the babies who weighed, 9 of them weighed between either 500 grams and 1 kg. All of them are really healthy. They spent time over a year in Morocco where there was specialist care. So they had Halamoy gave birth in Morocco and now they're back in Mali. So, incredible story that I got a bit of a giggle out of. So, they were born after 30 weeks by C section. And like I said to you, they were spent months in hospital and then they moved to an apartment in Casablanca where they had round the clock medical supervision. The father of the 9 babies thanked the Mali government for their financial support. Fair play to them. They divvied in as well. The family now includes, imagine that, lads. Just genuinely think of it. Imagine going from a couple of two, you know what I mean, to 11 of you. You're like, how do you even get around in the car? Or do you like go, you need a bus straight off, don't you? It's wild. So the 9 included 5 beautiful little girls and 4 boys, and they're all incredibly healthy now. They're over a year old and they are back in Morocco thriving. Just incredible bit of good news. Yeah, you know what I mean? There's a lot of kind of bad news around the place at the moment. I just thought that was a decent one. I have a question for you as well. Would you dress in the same outfit as your dog or cat? This is a big movement at the moment. You're probably seeing an awful lot of it on social media. But Adidas has gone into pet clothing. So they're calling it Petcore. And they've dropped their new line. This is available in China at the moment, but only a matter of time before we have it here in Europe and in Ireland. So these are matching tracksuits and windbreakers for your cat and dog. And the campaign shows the pets rocking full Adidas, you know, the originals gear, the kind of cool Adidas original stuff. That's the question, though. Like Tommy, to be fair to him, looks like his dog, so he could easily dress like him. But it's a question for you. Throw it in the comments below. Would you be arsed? Or I it personally drives me nuts. We had a Christmas jumper for Shadow there for a while, and I genuinely thought it was the greatest nonsense of all time. My kids are mad to dress him up for Halloween. He has been like a vampire where they've put a kind of cape around him and his collar has these kind of horn things on him. But I genuinely don't see the point in making a laughing stock or your pet. You know what I mean? If you love him enough, leave him alone. You know what I mean? Leave your cat or your dog alone. They don't need to be going around in this deadly new Adidas gear. Now, to be fair, it is a bit of an accessory. You know what I mean? If you're tugging out with your cat to kind of look the part, Tui and matching windbreakers is heading to the Oasis concert. I I could see that being pulled off for definite. So, they're saying it's a big movement at the moment. It's very controversial online, and people have different opinions. Do leave us know. Would you tug out like your dog? Get a pair of red jocks for Shadow. That'll be all right, wouldn't it? Huh? So they're my 2 stories this weekend. Obviously, it's easier to get them across when Bo's in about. But that's the big questions. Would you dress like your dog? Leave us know in the comments. We have some exciting stuff coming up. We're getting into the Interpros very shortly. And we're lucky we are going to be chatting to Andrew Porter very in the next few weeks about his new book. Obviously, we're going to chat to him about the Lions tour where he was absolutely amazing, and we're going to chat to him about his career. Main focus is on his book, which is in great bookshops now around the country. Get down to your local bookshop and pick up Andrew Porter's new book. So really looking forward to chatting to him, especially because it's Munster Leinster. That's going on in Croke Park. There is good excitement about it. Personally, I'd rather Munster supporters tugged out and filled out maybe the game for Gloucester in Páirc Uí Chaoimh or one of the games in Limerick. I think sometimes we can feather the Leinster nest by looking after them to fill out places like Croke Park when I know they're great events, but I think it just leaves them moving further and further away with the financial backing and stuff like that. So I will be looking forward to that match. We're looking forward to chatting to Andrew Porter. Great excitement about it. But yeah, let's look back over the weekend that was and preview the week that's coming of rugby. If I'm to be honest, it was a disappointing weekend. Of course, we had Storm Amy that cost us an awful lot in terms of we lost two big games. We lost the Scarlets versus Connacht, and we also lost Ulster versus Edinburgh, which would have been two great games. Obviously, not ideal for any of those teams at the moment. Of course, you want to have all your internationals back, but when you start off and into the season, you just need games, and you to lose out on them, you'd be very disappointed to not hit your straps as the year gets more and more difficult. By all accounts, the Scarlets had a nightmare trying to travel, and you can understand why that game was called off and the sacrifices they made to try to get over. But it had me thinking, should there be greater repercussions if a game has to be postponed? You just look at the Prem at the weekend, the wind conditions actually made to the games being incredibly entertaining. You saw both teams kind of, it was at the Leicester game and the Northampton game, they ran out to big leads and teams had to pull it back. So even navigating the conditions, I think there is always of interest. In fact, even in our domestic league, the AIL, I went up to watch Carlos Spencer's Turnier. I was giddy to maybe see how they'd play, but the massive wind was blowing towards the clubhouse in Cork, and Turnier, true to what Carlos Spencer is, incredible player, they tried to run the ball from everywhere. And the conditions just did not allow for it. Con coming away with a good win. And it just got me thinking, sometimes these games going on with different types of condition can give us something totally different, and I think we shouldn't kind of go away from seeing that. Obviously you want players and most so supporters to be safe and well, and of course those games are called off for different reasons, but I would like to see a better effort in trying to get those games played. It was disappointing they didn't happen. um, it was good. Sorry, I'll go back to the URC, but I just want to give a tip of the hat. I know you're going to say, here he goes with his blinkered, one-eyed goggles again, but Worcester back playing in the Championship. They had a good win in six ways over Coventry, and I think just, of course, I'm a former um, Worcester man, and I obviously would have an awful lot of loyalty there, but I think this is really good for rugby. I think we've lost such important clubs, losing Wasps, losing London Irish, losing Worcester. Seeing clubs like that come back gives you hope that hopefully we can see the likes of Wasps again, London Irish again, and that there's a place for people. If you saw the crowds in six ways, it just shows the desire in that area to see rugby, and I thought it was really good to see. So just to go back over the URC, there was wins for Zebra over the lines. Benetton beat Glasgow. That was probably the game of the weekend, 16-14. So a good win for Benetton. The Stormers beat the Ospreys. I think the Ospreys, they'll be glad, a bit like Leinster, to have that South African tour over and done with. And then the Dragons drew with the Sharks. So plenty went on within it. Then I suppose Munster got over the line against Cardiff, and Leinster went down to the Bulls. There was a fair bit of niggle in that match. Of course, altitude is always hard to navigate, and Leinster were disappointed, made seven changes from the week before. I'd say they'd be a little bit frustrated that they probably didn't get more out of that game, but these are good to see, these rivalries. You could see the Bulls were hurting from that final. Leinster obviously coming out on top in the URC, home advantage being a massive part of it, but just niggle off the ball, constant kind of maybe fellas getting in people's face. And that's probably what we need within the URC, those kind of, you have it with maybe Munster and Glasgow, and now hopefully there's a start of one here between the Bulls and Leinster. But I think Leinster will be looking forward to getting back on track. They take on the Sharks, their first home game. They'll start to drip in their internationals, maybe not this week, but certainly in the next few weeks as they head on towards Crow Park. But that's probably one of the games of the weekend. Leinster at home to the Sharks. Cardiff are taking on Connacht. To be fair, I was impressed with Cardiff. I thought it was a really hard fought game for Munster. They found a way to get over the line. Jack Crowley, man of the match, a big performance there. And yeah, it was again an attritional game. And I think, you always, the selfish part of you always wants to get everything you can out of a game. But Munster, to over the last 2 weeks, to have 9 points, I think Clayton Macmillan will be certainly happy with how it pushes on for the rest of the season for him. So if we were to kind of look at the URC, the games that are standing out, the Scarlets take on the Stormers. Benetton are at home to the Lions. The Ospreys versus Zebra. Glasgow versus the Dragons. They'll be looking to bounce back and find a way after that loss to Benetton. And then Ulster are playing the Bulls. So plenty going on with that Cardiff versus Connacht game as well. So hopefully a big week of URC. It's bubbling away before we kind of get into the derby sides of it or the interpro side of it. So a good time to probably jump in and maybe just keep an eye on some of the URC games there. But there's certainly ones that are worth keeping your eye on. And I definitely think Munster versus Edinburgh in Cork on Friday night is one of those. I went down to that game last year. It was probably one of the most disappointing games I'd seen in Cork. Edinburgh certainly took it to Munster up front and bopped them, and you'd be hoping that that's still raw with an awful lot of those Munster players. Of course, when you go out, be it in Limerick or Cork, you want to give your best performance. Well, Edinburgh certainly came away on top in all aspects of that last year. So the Ulster Bulls game as well should be good. And the Leinster Sharks, Leinster looking for their first win of the season. There was other great rugby around the place, to be fair. The Prem, as much as they're selling it for being wacky, it certainly is. I would think if you were Richard Wigglesworth heading into your new role as the English defence coach, you would be incredibly frustrated with some of the standard of defence. And we're just chatting about basic, probably people scoring off what we would call launch, set piece, stuff like that. I thought the Prem, as great as it was this weekend, there was some incredible games. I would think if I was looking at with kind of my English glasses on, if I was an English rugby fan, I would be concerned for the standard of defence within it. And I do think he has a big job to kind of close the gulf in that. But there was Bat beat Sale, Exeter are back. Yeah, they look so exciting. They look incredibly fit. They had a good win over Newcastle, who have got rid of Steve Diamond. We chatted about the Red Bull money coming into Newcastle. Well, now to see Newcastle, you know what I mean, looking like a longer term project. Gregor Townsend being involved as a consultant, which is really interesting. I'm looking forward to a chat with Tommy about that. I don't know about it, lads. I'll be completely honest, and I'd be interested in your view how a national coach can have a consultancy role. I know Eddie Jones had this with Japan as well, and there was real frustration around it. So interested in your views, and we will flesh that out a little bit more. We were chatting about the wackiness of the Prem, and it certainly was the case in the Quins game. Quins going out to a 19-point lead over the Leicester Tigers, and the Tigers finding something to come back and win 29-19. That was a great game. Saracens look different gravy within the league, and I genuinely put it down to Owen Farrell. I just think when you get a leader like him back in your environment, he can help point everyone north. They had an incredible win over Bristol, 50-17, and Bristol, Pat Lam will be concerned, picking up massive injuries at the moment. And it was interesting to hear Pat Lam chat. We're not chatting about these kind of soft tissue injuries. He's chatting about guys heading for deeper surgeries and stuff like that, which just shows the physicality within the game at the moment. I think as an ex-player, you would have always kind of gone on the mantra that your body is your business and you have to look after soft tissue injuries. That's your job. You shouldn't be missing games for soft tissue injuries. Well, Bristol, they're looking at more long-term ones where players are taking up massive collisions. So he's saying already that it's going to find it really tough to make that top four. And we're only 2 games in. Having played in the Premiership, you realise the first 3 games are vital. I'd worry a little bit for Harlequins. They play Saracens this weekend and need a massive result, more so than anything. Quins need to find a result or else everyone will target them. Of course, there's no relegation in the Prem this year, but it can be a long year if you're down that part of the table. There was an incredible game where Gloucester took on Northampton, and Northampton going into a 30-point lead at half time, and Gloucester finding a way to kind of get back into it. But unlike Leicester, they weren't able to, and they went down at home 35-37. Was that was probably one of the games that for me was quite stark in terms of just watching general launch play attack absolutely exposing teams. So I think there is, you will target individuals, but I do think the Prem in general, of course, we all want to see run and rugby and high scoring games. But I do think there's a standard of defence that you expect from professional players that I didn't think we saw in the Premier this week. And I do think Richard Wigglesworth has his hands full. We're all looking forward to the Interpros, but the Prem takes on their Derby weekend, and there's some great ones. If you just want to watch lads knock lumps out each other, it'll be a good weekend to watch the Prem. So Sale, they're taking on Newcastle, Bristol versus Exeter. Big one here, I think, Northampton versus the Tigers. Bath are at home to Gloucester, and then Quins take on Saracens. So that should be an interesting game. They're kind of trying to follow after maybe the Tottenham and Arsenal kind of thing, North, South London's kind of vibes going on in that side of it. But an interesting week in the Prem and should lead to some great games if you want to keep an eye on any of them. We will chat about R360 when we have Tommy, because there's been a fair bit of over and back between the unions who have seemed to come together and R360 who have rebutted. So we'll go through all that with Tommy when we're together. For me, it is a little bit of a concern, though. It's amazing how we can get all the right people, all the right heads in the room by the unions when we're chatting about the wolf at the door in terms of R360, when they know that they can lose out on something, and that being the product, the players. There is a great sense of urgency, and the unions have come out and said that none of the players that would play in R360 would be considered for international rugby, which I'll be honest with you, as a former player, that's a non-runner for you. You do want to, it's the highlight of your career. You want to play for your country. You want to represent where you're from. I know we're chatting about massive money for these players. If they were to play in it, would they forego international honours? I still think not. I think the grow and the love for rugby to represent for where you're from is still quite high. But I was frustrated. I wish all these unions could come together when we chat about laws or when we chat about the global calendar. Like, if they're so willing to get in the room to stop R360, is there any chance they could sit down for an extra 10 minutes and just realign the global calendars that have been frustrating all of us and, leading to unbelievable confusion within the game, and for me personally, stopping the near on growth of it. So great to see that R360 is being disruptive. They've gone back and said their main focus is on player welfare, and that they would see a window for players to play international. So this is something that is certainly worth keeping an eye on. We'll chat about it with Tommy, but we might get someone as well to discuss it with us and take us through the nuts and bolts of it. The Rugby Championship wrapped up as well this weekend. Congratulations to South Africa. Noble, a tip of the hat to Felix Jones and Jerry Flannery. Of course, they always have to shout after your own. I was rocked when I turned it on. I didn't know it was going to be in Allianz, so Twickenham, in England. So Argentina moved the game. I know we chat about maybe taking advantage of bigger venues and stuff like that. Well, Argentina moved the game and a sellout in Twickenham for two teams that aren't even further shows that, if we can get this right, there is a want and a drive to see great rugby. It was full of Argentinians and, of course, South Africans. South Africa coming out on top 29-27 in what was an incredible game. I know it was one for probably Tommy in terms of the South African scrum. It was a joy to watch. It was so destructive, even down to 17. They just, for a team like Argentina, I know they're under Felipe at the moment, and they're incredible running rugby, but their DNA is set piece, and for them to be on rollerblades like they were was quite incredible. Malcolm Marks scoring his 27 test try. RG Simon's ability to offload in contact is quite different. So yeah, that was an incredible game. New Zealand came out in top, 4 wins as well for the All Blacks. It was a poor game though, and I think overall you would be saying well done to Joe Schmidt. Of course, he would like them to have gone better, but I think from where he handed or received that Australia team to make them so competitive, the Rugby Championship was a joy this year. It really was. We're going to see all those teams back in playing over the course of the autumn internationals. It should be incredible. Really looking forward to that. And we will have more prizes along the way. We're going to have a few tickets for some of our members in the dressing room. If you're in the dressing room on Tuesday nights, thank you so much. We had a great chat last week about it was meant to be about referees, but it took an awful spiral into kind of leadership in ways and just different types of people for communicating with refs. So that's certainly worth a listen to. You can go back and listen to it. We do appreciate everyone that does subscribe to the dressing room on Tuesday evenings, and we're going to have a few more tickets as we go along to give away in there. We have some excitement in there as well. This weekend, we're going to be chatting to Graham Close. This guy is a Swiss Army knife when it comes to high performance, be it nutrition, strength and conditioning, or physiology, just in terms of player development, player how to get the best out of individuals. He is quite incredible, and we are going to be chatting to him in the dressing room on Tuesday night. Don't miss it. He toured with the Lions this year. Andy Farrell brought him along. He built up a brilliant relationship from chatting to him with the Leinster lads and the Irish lads. Was a bit in awe of the incredible work rate of him. We'll get a few general questions that we'll put out on next Friday's show. I know there's an awful lot of people interested in that, but if you have any questions for Graham, do leave us know on the box below. That's it. Again, thank you so much for listening. I know it was a bit nerdy today and more so chat about rugby. We will hop the ball again, of course, when we get Tommy back next week. But like we said, thank you so much for listening. We do appreciate it in the dressing room. Have the best weekend. If you watch rugby, great, fair play to you. If you don't, have a ball with your friends and family. And we will chat to you in the dressing room on Tuesday night. And if not, next Friday. Slán.